out of roads, sinkholes. Anyway, I guess I've been all right.
Anywhere you like, drive around the floor. Anywhere you like. You can just drive around.
You want me to just wander around?
Mine anyway.
No, you're good, thank you.
Trying to find the best.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for coming this afternoon to have a chat about diversity and inclusion, belonging, and share your thoughts, and to have given a couple of hours of this beautiful Sunday to sit together and make some plans for a positive future. My name is Shay-Lee Rafuse. I'm the Health Director for Glooscap First Nation. I appreciate you letting me participate in this afternoon and help guide this conversation. My role is event guardian, so I'm going to kind of move things along, remind people when we're going over. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Better? Sorry. Oh. No, that was great. Thank you. I like that attention breaker. So just to get the afternoon going, I would like to say, Gwe Lalio. I would like to welcome you all to the territorial lands of the Mi'kmaq people. We are in Mi'kma'ki, and I would also like to recognize the contributions of the African Nova Scotian, the Black Loyalist, descendants of over 500 years in Nova Scotia. Okay. Forgive me, I'm nervous. This is a large crowd and I'm standing up and I've got nowhere to hide. Okay, thank you. All right. I'm going to hang out here now. As I'm sure you're all aware, when you walk in, the exits are here and here. Bathrooms are through the doorway. Please feel free to exit and use them whenever you need. Just wanted to remind everybody where they were. This event will be held in 2 parts. So we will have a candidate question period where I'm going to pose some questions, and the candidates who are interested in answering are going to indicate by raising their hands, and I will bring the microphone to you. Sherwin, this gentleman here has just raised the paper, is going to keep us on track with time. So when you see him raise the paper, please recognize that there's a few minutes to kind of wrap things up so we can give someone else an opportunity to speak. After that, we'll have a public question and answer period for all of you. And there'll be questions that will be reviewed, and I'll ask them for you. And again, please feel free to raise your hands, and I'll bring mine to you. Code of conduct. This is a little bit of housekeeping for everyone. Please be respectful. We're sharing thoughts and feelings. This isn't a debate, it's an opportunity to share. Please be mindful that we are on a timeline. I want to respect the fact that everybody has things to do this afternoon, and you may have other commitments, so we will be mindful of that. Please, sorry, I have to just remind myself. Take turns active listening. So as you're sharing, listen to what everyone else is saying when they speak. Again, this comes back to just respecting each other. We're going to focus on the issues and not the individuals. So So as the questions are being asked and you do respond, we're not gonna make this personal. We're gonna address it, stick to the facts, and we're gonna just move on. Please don't be disruptive. So that won't be tolerated. No shouting, heckling, or talking over someone as they are speaking. This day and the conversations are going to be recorded, so please be mindful of the public nature of your comments. And anyone who doesn't respect these basic rules will be asked to A, pause, reflect on what your behavior is doing, and B, if you feel you can't do that, you will be asked to leave. Okay. During the candidate question period, you'll be able to submit questions at the table, and these questions will be directly connected to the inclusion and belonging nature of today's gathering. Candidates, welcome. Thank you for taking the time to be here, and if everyone would like, please just show your gratitude by offering a round of applause. All right, I'm going to dig out the questions and we're going to get started.
Could you introduce everyone?
Introductions.
Sure, I will pass this along.
Stephen Pearl.
Kathy Maxwell.
Kate Savage.
Don Jewell.
Roz McKinnon, good afternoon.
Paula Huntley. Good afternoon, Samantha Hamilton. Sharon Keaton.
John Andrew.
Lloyd Schmidt.
And Holly Rogers.
Brent Platt.
Good afternoon, Mark Charrier.
Deborah Kroll.
Good afternoon, Andrew Zabian.
Hi, Bernie.
Hi.
Rob Baker. That's it, right?
Thanks, Sharon. Okay, thank you, everyone. So I am going to ask each of you why you are running.
Why am I running? Well, I think that the last 8 years have been very dysfunctional for our community. I think we need to make some big changes should be made. I think that I wrote in my bio that if you've ever seen the movie Network, Howard Beale says, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. That's how I feel. So I'm running to make some changes, positive changes to our community. Thank you.
Why am I running? There are a lot of reasons why I'm running, but in my previous terms, it was not smooth sailing, and I would like to come back and work under a new mayor with a new CAO and see if I can help get things back on track the way that they should go. That's one reason. Another reason I'm running is because as I look around town, I see that we have issues like stormwater that needs to be taken care of. And one that's near and dear to my heart that people have been asking, and I've been asking since I was a young child, is we need an indoor pool in the area for our seniors and for our children. And I think we're as close as we could be right now, and I would like to come back and be a voice for the citizens of Kentville in that area. I served as pool director for a lot of years, and I swam for Acadia University, so I have an extensive aquatic background.
Good afternoon. I wrote down a couple of notes. I feel that because of the experience and the knowledge that I've had over the past 8 years, to make some educated recommendations around land use bylaw, municipal strategy, stormwater management. I have a comprehensive background in financial management. I believe that I've been able to contribute greatly as chair of the Investment Advisory Committee, audit Kings Regional Sewer, and my voice at the table has typically been quite poised but direct. I listen, I evaluate, and then I act. So I'm asking for your support, and that is why I'm running. Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm running simply because I want to see a lot of citizen engagement to help with new governance. I think that's critical in any form of government that I've ever worked in. And my background in policy from Department of Health is what I bring. So that's what I'm supporting.
Hi, I've been asked a few times over the last week, why am I running? I've always had an avid interest in politics at every level. I actually went 4 years ago and picked up the nominations package, and then I didn't go ahead with it. And more than one person has said, you dodged the bullet on that one. And, but when it rolled around again and it was time for this election, I thought, I have the time, I have the interest, I have the experience, and the commitment and passion for municipal politics. I think transparency, working collaboratively, are really important goals for us to try to achieve here in Kentville. We've reached some of our potential. We have so much more that we can do. The infrastructure, increased recreational opportunities, safeguarding of our tax dollars. So my slogan for this campaign is fresh eyes, new ideas, and common sense. I hope you'll consider me when you go to the polls. Thank you.
Hi everyone, Paula Huntley. I am currently a councillor here in the town of Kentville. I think when I thought about running for mayor, my answer was this to myself. If I want to continue to help making a difference, learn about things that we're going to talk about today, diversity and inclusion, those two things right away come back to so many things that we work at the table that contribute to the town of Kentville. Passion and care, I bet you everybody up here has that. I will speak for myself. 20 years here, I have contributed to the community in learning, helping programs, and one of the things that I've really enjoyed is being at the table to have the conversations and to learn. Without learning and the knowledge, I can't contribute to the topics at hand. So I want to be at the front of the table. I want to be in the conversations right at the beginning. Thank you.
Hello. I wanted to run this time. I thought about it actually the last term, and I didn't. Life was pretty busy in my house. I had young teenagers at that time. My guys are all adults now. But I just want to see the people of Kentville have pride in our town, and I want our town to grow and prosper. I believe in collaboration, so I want to hear from all the residents, and I want to be able to take everybody's opinions and thoughts and perspectives, and to be able to put that all together, come up with some really creative solutions, and make this place a better place for everybody to live in. And it's just realizing that everybody comes from different backgrounds, and I want people to feel valued and appreciated and feel like they're involved. We've had our fair share of challenges, so.
Hi, I'm Sharon Keogh, and the reason I'm running for council is over the last 4 years we've had a lot of struggles. Unfortunately, a lot of the stuff that we should have been driving basically took a back seat to that, and they've been stagnant. We need change. I think that with the right group of people, then we could put all the noise behind us and start focusing on the stuff that really turn this town around and rebuild and make us back to the wonderful town that we can. This is home. Let's treat it like home.
My name's John Andrew. It's harder to say something new by the time you get this far along, but also a big believer in collaboration, and we have a diversity of voices, and part of my role has been specific to people who are marginalized, experiencing poverty and housing issues, and I've been very involved with that kind of work for the last 26 years, but also involved in social enterprise and seeing people and facilitating and encouraging people in moving forward and moving out of those places where they've previously been locked in. I served on council from 2016 to 2020. I think that brings some value to the table. I have an understanding. It's been interesting to watch the last 4 years unfold. It hasn't been easy. Neither was the term that I served on. But I look forward to working with those I've met, and I've had the opportunity to sit with a lot of these folks, and I can speak highly of each one who's here. They've shown a commitment. Some of us have already met and had conversations on Facebook or in person, and it's fabulous to be just up here with this group. Thank you.
Hi, Lloyd Schmidt. I just moved back from, I was living in Porter's Lake for a number of years, and I'm glad to be back. I've spent my whole life in the private sector, so my focus, one of my main focuses will be on helping business in the town of Kentville, because I have an appreciation for what business brings to a community. My opinion is that business is what largely gives a town character. So that, and plus fiscal responsibility, you can't run a business if you're fiscally irresponsible like most governments are. And a robust infrastructure. As I'm going around talking to people, my goodness, we have a big problem, a big challenge with the stormwater runoff. And you know, in today's world, we're faced with local challenges, but increasingly we're faced with global influences. And so I would want to address those issues. Thank you.
Hey there, Holly Rogers. My speech might be a little bit different, but I have lived in and around the town of Kentville for all of my life. I sit on the Inclusion and Access Advisory Committee, and I have been involved with Recreation Department. I feel like this is my next step in my journey because I want Kentville to be a thriving, warm, and welcoming place and inclusive to everyone. And I think having someone who has a disability sitting at the table would be able to apply the accessibility lens to everything moving forward and not just one thing.
Thanks, Holly. My name is Brent Platt. I'm running for mayor. I have a bit of an interesting career path that brought me here, but I spent my entire career working in the nonprofit sector. I worked on the bureaucratic side of government, so I understand how things work. And I'm running because I feel we need a real change. We need some new voices, and we need to grow up. I think, yeah, okay. Yeah, we need to grow up and make tough decisions, be able to come together, and I'm really excited that we're going to talk about diversity and inclusion today. And that's a big part of my platform, is making sure citizens feel heard, although that doesn't seem to be the case with me in this microphone at the moment. And when I'm going around and talking to people, I've been at doors every single night for the last 10 days. People have opened their doors and have told me their concerns, and I'm here to listen. I was told by my grandmother I have 2 ears and 1 mouth, and I should use those judiciously. So my job is to listen more than I talk, and I'm grateful to be here today.
Thank you. My name is Mark Sherrier. I am a lawyer here in town. Don't hold that against me. I've been, like many of my friends up here, I've been involved with many volunteer organizations dealing with various aspects of Kentville. The disabled people with the different abilities, the LGBT community, mental health issues. So I'm very much involved in diversity and inclusion in terms of why I'm running. Like some of my friends up here, the town hasn't always had a great vision, and I think I can help do that, as well as work collaboratively with anyone at this semicircle. And wish everybody luck, and turn it on to the next person.
Well, thank you very much. I'm Deborah Kroll. Some people here may recognize my name or maybe my face if you ever watched the council meeting. I have worked for the town for 35 years in the finance department. In the last 25 years of my career I spent as the finance director. So I'm well familiar with the council setting and being attended many council meetings. The budgets that were prepared by me, the financial statements as well, with me and my staff. The reasons that I'm running are that I see that there's a need for more accountability in the town. There's a need for a greater degree of fiscal responsibility, and there's a greater need for transparency, and I'm all for those things. I lived and worked in that avenue, and I really want to continue that. I'm used to working on a team. We had a great team of directors and whatnot in the senior management team. I also feel that there's a need for strategy sessions to be held with council on infrastructure to plan out the future infrastructure problems that we have in town. We all know that one of them is stormwater management. So having said that, those are the reasons that I put my name forward. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Andrew Zabian. I've served the last 4 years on council, and it wasn't an easy 4 years. I think that's not a secret here. But with all that came a lot of lessons, and I just feel that I'm ready to take the next step and apply everything that I learned, the good and the bad, and put it forward for the next 4 years. I just want to say I know all these people here. I've had the privilege of knowing all of them and talking to them, and you got a great group up here. I think all of us, we've got a passion for this town, and I want to see a group come together collectively and just work at making Kentville a more inclusive town as a group. I know we can do that. There's a lot of other things we have to work on, our infrastructure and of course fiscal responsibility, but I really want to focus on every part of Kentville, not just the north, not just the south, the whole town, and I know a new group can come together and focus on that. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rob Baker, and I just want to take a moment to acknowledge my ADHD, but the sirens that you hear going off, there's no better feeling than knowing that those boys and girls are coming to help when you're in need. So I just want to say that. That's about as formal as I'll get this afternoon. I'm a teacher. I'm a resource teacher. I work with struggling students, people who are working to graduate. Not feedback. I'm starting to learn some of the jargon and acronyms outside of my little education silo. I've downloaded the Municipal Government Act of 1998 and its amendments, and when I have trouble sleeping, I skim through it. This isn't an easy job being a town councillor. It's going to require the best of my abilities to be able to step up to the table, to come up to speed, to learn how the town runs, to learn the rules, and to learn about the people and the tests that have been going on. I keep coming back to my teacher head, the tests. Okay, I'll shut down. I have a particular set of skills, said Liam Neeson, to offer to you, and that is my offer of service.
Okay, so thank you all so much for sharing that. You did a great job in kind of condensing things and being very mindful of the time. So now we're getting into the questions. There's 8 of them. I'm going to just read the questions out, and if any of you would like to respond, instead of passing the microphone on and giving you like 20 to 30 seconds to answer, please indicate you'd like to answer the question, and I'll bring the microphone to you. And again, Sherman's going to be kind of monitoring the time, so just be mindful if he raises the paper. We'll be moving along. So our first question is municipal decision-making and community involvement. What approaches do you think are most effective in ensuring the voices of equity-deserving groups are heard and included in town council sessions?
Thanks for giving me the time for this. Municipal decision-making and community involvement. Initially, it should be community involvement and then municipal decision. We as municipal can talk about the needs of what we think we see, but without asking the community on what they think, it doesn't count. We need to make sure that we collaborate with the community, because maybe there's something that if I'm there, I don't know. So if I don't ask, the conversation really can't be complete. So today, this is where we start. But as we have more of these meetings, the way I would love to do it is because focus groups tend to allow smaller groups out of the bigger one. And sometimes people don't like to speak up in a large group. So this would give them the opportunity to say what they think, great ideas. That way we can move forward. If we need to collaborate together. Thank you.
The
Thank you. What I want to say about municipal decision-making and so on, and being inclusive, is that, first of all, growing up as a young child in this town, and, you know, I'm heading into the 70 years pretty soon, so I've been here a long time. The face of Kentville has changed drastically since I was going to KCA. And we need to make sure that we are including all populations in decision-making in our town. One of the best ways is what we're doing right now. And we have a staff person, Mr. Roxy Peterson, who is a community navigator, and he is bringing community together. And that is the first step. And that's how we get involved. And so by setting up committee with Roxy, getting involved with that committee, and then that committee then brings forward the ideas and the views, and those ideas and views are coming from the citizens, because they are there, they are talking to the community. Bring those into the council, and then council makes the decision that needs to be made. So I think we are very much on the path of beginning the inclusive process.
In shape by the end of this. It's good as we go through this, it all makes sense. I'm glad to hear everybody is along the same kind of path, but to make a decision as a government, you need to make sure the citizens and the residents of the town actually want that decision. There are some things that need to happen, but you can never create too much space for dialogue. And to find ways to make sure people can come together in a way that makes sense for them. And it could be in a room like this, it could be on a chat room online, but there are many different ways that we can make sure people's voices are heard. And we just need to create space for that and find a way to communicate back to them. So this is a great first step, but hopefully we share what we gain from today after this is done.
Again, everybody's ideas are great, but we also have to remember, we can't just sit back and say, come to us. We have to go out into the community and let the community say that they can come to us and go, you're here at our event, you're here at our home. Let us talk to you. Rather than have us sit at a table and everybody come to us. We should not be looked at as an elite. We are your politicians, we are your representatives, we are your voice. And we shouldn't just be sitting here saying what we want to say, but go out into the community, go out to events, go to some of diversity and inclusion events to show that we care, rather than just have people come to us. I can walk.
Yes.
I think better standing up. Now, the question begins. Community involvement. I'm gonna ask a couple of people in the audience. You feel like your voice is being heard? Sometimes. Scott?
Sometimes, but there needs to be more.
Right.
There's too many things that people are missing out on.
Yeah, how many people think their voice is being heard? Raise your hand. Raise your hand. There you go. Some people, okay, that's good. So basically what we really need is an opportunity for people to understand that we work for the public. You know, I'm not here to be paid to sit in an office, I'm not here to be paid to kind of make decisions. I want to make decisions that you guys want to hear. I want a decision you guys want to be part of. So that's my answer.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Sit down. I did prepare some notes on this, so I just wanted to say a couple of things that I do like. First thing I do like is when I see the public feedback sections that are posted on the Town of Kentville website. You can go and read what your fellow residents have said. So you're not alone in that. So the other thing I feel about the information that is available, it requires many clicks and scanning of documents to find an answer that might be close to your question. And in that, you can get frustrated, and a lot of people give up. So I think we need to make our information more available, more user-friendly, and more timely. Because when it's timely and accurate, you can dispel a lot of rumors and gossips and bad feelings about what actually is happening. So making that information available upfront in a quick, timely manner that I don't have to drill down and find multiple layers of minutes and reports and things of that nature, I think would allow people, thank you, to be quiet like me.
Thanks, Rob. And I think, that's you. I think for me, on the last 4 years of council, I tried in the first year, and we did successfully do it. We had a public forum, which was nice to have. I think that should happen though a couple of times a year, where the public can just come. There's no agenda based, it's just the citizens talking to council, because to have 3 minutes at the end of the meeting to get up, first of all, you gotta wait there for sometimes 4 or 5 hours to have your minutes to talk, and there's never any dialogue between council and the public. So you kind of leave there, if you've waited and you've said a couple of words, there's no conversation back and forth. So I think, there should be a couple times a year where the public can freely come, speak to council, and then we're made aware of issues that we wouldn't necessarily know about. I think that's probably the biggest thing that needs to happen right away. There's got to be more engagement with the people, whoever this dynamic looks like, and all of you. Thank you.
We'll go here.
That is fine. I had an interesting discussion with one of my 8-year-old daughters today, and she wanted to know why she couldn't vote. I will say that when I served as a councillor, I probably at times was distracted by some of the bigger picture issues. And one of those issues was advocating with the then Minister of Municipal Affairs and Minister of Education for the introduction of a more intensive and gradual civics kind of training that would happen throughout your education. And anyone who's running knows you're already getting solicited about issues for which you have no jurisdiction and will have no jurisdiction. The other thing is, you may have heard reference to, Mayor Snow likes to give reference to the decision-making wheel, and that's not to pick at her. That decision-making wheel is part of the problem, because our issues are not Kentville-centric a lot of times, because you have all kinds of factors. So councillors are sent off to conferences, and they hear what we should do. And then you have this decision-making wheel, and only one piece of that pie is what the citizens want. And so we need to begin there, and then decide from that place. So we're originating, if you start in the wrong place, you're going to often end up in the wrong place, and that's happening far too often.
One of the reasons that I got involved in running as a candidate was a meeting that I held, that I didn't hold, the people that did the pallet homes held here in this hall. And it was a really interesting meeting, because at one point, a gentleman sitting right over there got up and said, well, listen, what are we here for? Are we making any decisions? And everybody on the front room there, the front of the room said, well, no, we're just giving you the information. And he said, so you mean to say this is a done deal? And they said, yes, the pallet homes are on the way. Now, you can agree with the pallet homes or not, but the fact is, there was no public input into that decision. And so he said, what the heck are we doing here? And got up and left. If I'm a councillor, I would work tirelessly to see that that never happens again. That was atrocious.
What I've seen positive about the town with respect to the topics that were here, diversity, inclusion, a sense of belonging, is that the town has definitely tried to promote awareness of that. And that can only be a good thing. We're leading by example when you're pushing that forward, and whether or not that's for Pride Month or allowing our children to recognize that, again, that's a good thing. But on the same side, and this is the negative, is as citizens, when we go to council and we want to talk to our councillors and we have concerns, and we express those concerns, we get no answers. I would really like to see, and I'm hoping that if I am successful, that the rest of the councillors will do one thing, and that would be to engage with the people. People have answered or questions, let's answer those questions. Let's answer them right now if we have the answers, and if not, let's commit to getting them an answer, because they still haven't asked the question.
I think we need to look at what decisions we're making and who they're affecting. Sometimes, you know, like I am, it doesn't, if I'm looking through a lens of being a white woman, I need to make decisions that I can make that are affecting me, but I need to go out and meet you where you're at. I find, you know, sometimes it's the quieter voices that don't feel comfortable coming to a public setting. You know, you gotta go out and, depending on what decision you're making, you need to go out and find whose voice it is, because not all those voices are gonna be at the table and they're not gonna feel comfortable to be there. So you need to make sure that you have every perspective when you're making these decisions, and that those that you're making the decisions for, that you have their voice and their perspective, and that you're making a good decision for that group. And that's pretty much it.
I feel that we need to actively seek engagement, involvement, and feedback, and that invitation needs to be authentic, genuine, and not tokenism.
I have a slightly different perspective as being a first-gen Canadian, as many people are. I have experienced myself issues of discrimination and not feeling like I belong. Now, although I've had many years to work with this and figure out ways to learn to live here and amongst my family is from the UK, it's not a big deal. But I don't want to see other people go through that. So I'm taking it upon myself, as with others here with me, right? That we want to make it easier. And in order to make it easier, you have to know what the barrier is, right? I have invisible disabilities, right? That made it very, very difficult for many years. There are other people here who share that with me. So in order to be able to sit here and say, I want to be community engagement, I'm talking about everybody.
Thank you. So we've heard the word collaboration, and it's key to moving forward with this. We have Diversity Kings Committee, some of us, Councillor Zabian, myself, I'm trying to think who else has sat on that committee, but there's a few of us. And then also the Access and Inclusion Committee. I think it's really important that as municipal politicians and other orders of government that we continue to learn more about inclusion and diversity, because it's a very complicated issue and it doesn't come to us easily. I know it was either the first term or the second term when we had the Human Rights Commission come in and do some training with council and staff. And I know for myself that was 2 days of intensive learning, and it really helped me to look at things with a different lens. We've had the Multicultural Festival here, we're seeing pride parades, we're seeing more inclusion and more diversity, and it's good to see that. So, and I welcome any input as we should. Thank you.
These are all wonderful points you've all brought up. Thank you so much for sharing. So we're going to move to the next question, and this is in regards to equitable policies and programs. In what ways
will you work to ensure that the town's policies and programs are equitable and responsive to the unique needs of various equity-deserving groups?
I'm probably going to run counter to a lot of the narrative that's going on here today because I am a strong believer in merit-based hiring, okay? And just to kind of lay the framework here a little bit, when you sign a contract, usually there's some definitions that are laid out. So I really need to understand what you mean by diversity, equity, and inclusion, because it seems to me, anybody that knows me well knows that I'm a bit of an amateur philosopher. I can talk for hours with people on this stuff. But it seems to me that diversity and equity are two completely different things. So if you start with diversity and you end up with equity, you don't have diversity. Am I right? And inclusion, I've never been in a friendlier town than Kentville. I mean, I've lived a lot of places in Nova Scotia, and most of it here in Kentville. And I'm sorry, there's probably some cases of racism and discrimination for whatever reason. But I don't know. Kentville seems to me to be a pretty nice place.
Thank you. I think this is bigger than just racism, and I'm just going to backtrack a little bit. I'm 46 years old, and I went to Ellie Shaw in Davenport, a little tiny school, and my dad came from Lebanon. So I was the kid that went to school with pita bread, and nobody knew what pita bread was in the 80s. And I had black olives, and who's that kid with the black olives? So I always kind of felt a little bit out of place. I see my kids now at KCA, and they celebrate that stuff, and they celebrate different, religions and holidays and cultures, and I think it's great. I think an important point that we haven't touched on yet, and somebody probably will, is that when you look at, you have to kind of put it in the lens of somebody who's experiencing that. So for example, me, I don't have any physical disabilities, so I don't know what it's like to, have to go to a place that's not accessible inside. And I mean, you kind of have to get someone who's going through that and kind of let them guide you through how they feel. Because I only know how I felt as that little kid in school. I have no idea what it feels like to go in a building where, you need help to get in the building. And not everybody wants help. I wouldn't want help. So you kind of have to put it in the other person's lens, whatever purview you're looking at, and kind of take it from them. Thank you.
Thank you. When I think about equitable policies and programs, I think the first thing that I think about is, what do we do as a town right now that allows everybody to participate together? So the first thing I look at is Apple Blossom Festival, multicultural. All the events that we have, you're given an opportunity to meet together in one spot. After those events that we have, I think one of the things we need to remember is we always should be doing a post-mortem on what did we learn from that? What did we hear back to the people who are participating? Because that way, if we want to put out, this is what we did, this is what we heard, what do you think if we did top 3? And that's how we're going to figure out how to move forward. We can talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, but until we are purposeful in trying to do something in our town, it's just words, right? We have to be intentional about what we're speaking about. Just one example, when you go through our downtown, you see all the businesses. How many shops would you like to see they have diverse stickers on the doors? It's a small thing for many people, but it counts. Thank you.
I'm going to speak to what Andrew has said because I'm currently facing that for running for council, because in the fall of this past year, the town had an audit done for accessibility, and the result of that was basically to replace the whole building. So is it fair that, someone who is disabled cannot actually work in a building if they are voted for council or applying for a job. And plenty of this town is inaccessible, so when we're looking at things moving forward, it would be amazing if we can think of those with all abilities to get to the point where it's equal for everyone. So.
Nicely said. I grew up in a multicultural environment, but I acknowledge who I am and what I am. When I first came to the Valley years ago, the first thing I said is, where's everybody else? Because everybody here looks like me. I looked around my home community and I missed my Haitian friends and my Vietnamese friends and my Chinese friends and my Greek friends, and they weren't here. Luckily, there was enough of an international community that I was able to bring with a Bahamian friend at Acadia. And what we need to do as government, I'm going to say this plainly, government has a responsibility to make sure everybody's included. Business does not. Business is operating for its shareholders. The need for a balance between those two is often brought to you courtesy of your government. Folks will say, oh, the banks are taking our money away. Yes, but we don't want our banks to do poorly. But also, Canadian banks have done well because Canadian government has put in place measures to make sure that they're chartered, that they're sustainable, that they're secure. So government has a role in inclusion, and inclusion means giving people what they need to succeed. A hand up, yes, but a rising tide floats all boats, and we all benefit.
So, equity for me, I've had my fair amount of challenges with equity in my journey of leadership. I always thought, I want to sit at the table. I want to be there. I want to be the one making the decisions. Then I got a seat at the table. But I didn't belong at that table because I didn't have the opportunity. So I think we need to look at these policies and make sure that the opportunity is there. And what do people need for that opportunity? It's not just, you can't just say, well, everybody has the opportunity, because maybe they don't. Maybe they don't have what they need. So I think that sits pretty hard on me because I've had my own challenges with that and my own difficulties with that. And that, I think that gives me a perspective to advocate very hard for those people, because you know, we see all the struggles with people that what they have, but it's those unseen struggles that people have that we need to be able to help with.
I think it's been said, but I think it's very important that we have first-person voices in all of these things, and we all can think of examples of that. And I'll just tell you a story. I was in a situation where my former mother-in-law, and she won't listen to this, but who's highly educated, was talking to my very blue-collar aunt, who's Mi'kmaq. And this white woman is telling this other woman what words she should use in reference to her people. So we need to be very careful about that. The other issue is we also have to keep in focus that we are water, sewer, roads, parks, principally. So we need to be realistic when we talk about all these things, that we have a budget that has ballooned several $1 million over the last few years. So we need to make sure that we talk about these things and have diversity of voices, but let's make sure that we stick on task with our job as municipal councillors.
Yeah, I think inclusive policy making means we need to make sure that we see what we're doing, that we keep track of it. And I know that I witnessed when I went to town council meeting, there's now an interpreter that is there that interprets council meetings, and there's opportunity for people that may not be able to be present but can visit via webcasting. So I think there's some work that has been done. And to John's point, we have to understand that there is a base, and that base level of inclusivity also means that we need to make sure that some of our most vulnerable people have access to some of the most basic needs, like access to water and sewer and a home free of flooding. Well, I think we can do that as a government.
So I'm just sort of hearing everything that everybody is saying, and they're all really, really good points. So thanks everyone for that. Obviously, we want to be a province that is inclusive for everybody. We want, a place anybody, anywhere can go. That's what we should have. We at Town of Kentville are doing, or there's going to be a study done on the facility, the Town of Kentville facility, Town Hall. And we look forward to that coming. We may have to, I hope, we don't have to build a new building. It would be unfortunate. Hopefully we can transition and retrofit it so that it is more accessible, so that anybody and everybody, regardless of any disabilities, race, creed, whatever the situation is, that they can come and feel welcome. To, I think it was Andrew and John's point around regional sewer, things like that, water, sewer. There are just so many levels to this that we have to think about. I'm kind of going off because I see the white going up. Okay.
Thank you. Again, we'll go back to my childhood, and yes, there is division in this town, and we all know it. I know it, I went through it, and I'm still living through it. And one of the big things is, reasons that I went on council was because I wanted Kentville just to be Kentville. I didn't want a North Kentville, which actually there is no such thing. You can't find a sign that says North Kentville. I don't want a North Kentville. I don't want a West End. I don't want an East End. I want Kentville. And that's why I went on, one of the reasons, the early reasons why I went on council. And this Inclusion and Accessibility Committee came out of many, many hours of conversations with me and our recreation director at the time saying, we need to bring this community together. And so we are doing that. This Inclusion and Accessibility Committee is important. They're doing important work. Roxy Peterson is doing a fantastic job with connecting with community. How can we influence policy? That's the question. Committee forms the policies, policies come to council, and council needs to support those policies coming from our citizen committees. And I would do that. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to move on to the next question. How do you think resources and funding can be best used to support programs that improve outcomes for equity-deserving communities?
Thanks, hi. Some of you may have heard me say already that I do have a master's degree, and it's in a concentration of community development. So strengthening community on all levels is something that I'm very, very interested in. I think there's a number of things that council can do to do that. One of them, for example, would be putting out some seed funding. A call for proposals where grassroots organizations and or individuals have ideas about how can we increase diversity and inclusion in the community. For big government or for big business, $1,000 doesn't go very far. For a small not-for-profit, $1,000 can go a very long way. So that would be one of the things that I would be really interested in looking at. How can we support grassroots to advance causes that increases diversity and inclusivity?
Could you repeat the question real quick?
How do you think resources and funding can be best used to support programs that improve outcomes for equity-deserving communities?
Okay, so this also falls back on your committees. So like the Inclusion and Access Advisory, or the task team that Roxy has of belonging and diversity. It would be making sure that in the budget, the stuff that those committees and new committees bring to council are our priority in the budget moving forward.
Thank you. In thinking about resource allocation, there are things that we're doing right now that maybe we need to relook at, so i.e. grants that we are doing. Maybe there's a way to divvy up those funds into other ways. And let me give you an example. So let's say we want to have all council members and town staff trained on diversity and inclusion. Well, wouldn't it be nice if we could actually take some of the funds, train somebody as a trainer, and let that person then be the trainer for the town. So when people want to participate in learning more about how we're going to educate everybody, it's free for them. They can come and learn with us. Just an idea.
I think I'm a big fan of things being citizen originated, and we can support within reason ideas as a council. But efficient and effective are not words that are often attached to things that are government directed and funded. So my feeling is that if there are concerns around a particular area, and I spoke recently to our business community too, let's find the people who believe in that thing and are willing to put some legwork in. And I say that as someone who's done it. I say that as someone who's been an active community volunteer for 26 years. And we can accomplish a lot, and we don't always need money to accomplish these things. Do we have champions around whatever respective issue it is? If we have champions, the work will get done. If you throw money at it and you don't have the champions, then you spend money.
So I've actually looked at some other communities that are around, and there's some other communities that are doing some really great things for resource allocation. I would really like us to consider and put it as part of the priorities with a strategic plan to maybe look at other communities and what they're doing. One of the things that Enhanced Community is doing is a pilot project. It's looking at people's housing that's in the flooded areas. Some of these people that are in these flooded areas, they don't have the means to protect their homes. So the pilot project is to look at, do they have the pumps to get the water out? What does their houses look like? What do they need? Do they have an ability to take care of the water? So it's a pilot project right now, and it's based on income. I think we need to look at that. I think we also need to look at the bylaws. Right now, I'm actually dealing with the town of Kentville myself. We are trying to build an accessory housing. Housing for the kids are really hard, and so I think we need to look at the bylaws and maybe do it so that there can be more than one resident on one place.
I think Sam got a good point there. I think, the last 4 years have been led without a strategic plan, and I think it's important to know where we're going. We have to know where the destination is. So when we're looking at equity-based, funding or access, I think it's important for us to understand what that means and how does it fit into the vision that we have as a town. That's something that can happen with people's inputs, and that's something that we can actually track to see if we're doing a good job at it or not.
Thank you. Again, if we're looking at resources, a lot of people don't realize that we do give $21,000 to $25,000 every year to charitable organizations and to organizations that are doing good work within the town. Again, as a council and as a member of council, hopefully, we can support the citizen committees. So, for example, up in Oak Dean Park, we have an Oak Dean Park Garden Committee, and they are being supported by the town of Kentville to build a community garden, and they've done a fantastic job. And so the town is funding that through the committees. And so again, These citizen-led committees are very important. Council then needs to be willing to give out the funds, which that usually happens from citizen-led committees, and then we promote that. So yes, funding for these committees.
Thank you. I'm going to piggyback on what John and Kathy just said. We have a great task force here. I know Roxy's been up in different parts of the community in town and bringing people together. These great ladies in the front row here for putting those gardens together and doing all that hard work. I struggle a little bit with the question because I don't think we need a lot of funding to be good to people and to remember that we're all the same. It doesn't matter what we believe in, what we like, what we look like, we're all the same. And I think that just, you have to keep reminding yourself we're all human. And at the end of the day, I really don't care what you believe in. It's up to you. I look at you if you're a good person. So I don't think we need to keep throwing money at that. I think we need to get together as a community. You know, I look at Wolfville and they have that community oven, and that brings community together. I think we need to work more on bringing our community together as a group. And I mean, that shouldn't really cost a lot of money. So thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to draw the conversation back to money, and that was my job for 25 years, was putting together budgets for 6 funds for 6 different sort of businesses within the town of Kentville. Council Kathy Maxwell is correct. We gave a great deal of money out to many organizations that applied for grants, and that's wonderful news. The thing is that municipal finance and budgeting is a delicate balancing act. We all want pretty well everything. We'd all love to have the Taj Mahal, I'm sure, in Kentville, but we really can't afford it because I don't think any of us want to pay that kind of a tax rate to pay for it. So like, it's great to have all these ideas and bring all these ideas into the departments, bring all these ideas into the finance director, and they'll all get added into the budget in some fashion, hopefully some that will take, and we'll be able to do some of these things. There's certainly an awful lot of work that is being done by volunteers and various groups within the town as well. So just wanted to bring it back to sometimes money does matter.
It comes down to engagement, whether or not it is council and citizens, or council and citizens and businesses, that collectively, that we're together and we evaluate all of these things, whether or not it's money or what the event is, or what the garden is, or what's the most benefit, where do we, so and prioritize that, so that full engagement, everybody does get that sense of community, and we actually, everything, we can do everything. It just might have to be done in stages. So where do we get the biggest bang for our buck? And that citizens get the most value out of it. So that would be where my head would be at.
Resource allocation. Most of you know that I had a 35-year career in education. I wanted to do, I knew my teacher job, right? But again, every year, it figured what we're going to do with the resources that we had. One of the resources that we had, you know, you heard the Pink Shirt campaign. We started up when I was principal at CK. How many of you know where the autism center is? It's an autism center at CK under my watch. So again, it's one of those things where I dealt with the resource allocation, dealt with the money, and dealt with all kinds of things, and bring that to this town. Thank you.
Thank you. So just to dovetail on some of the things that, say, maybe Andrew said, Kathy said, Paula said, like we have a staff member who was certified, Rick Hansen certified. We have folks like Roxy. We have the recreation department, which we have seen vastly expand over the last few years to allow and support more of the diversity and inclusion. And I think if we can continue to build on that, and we continue to have sessions like this, that's how we are going to show our support. And hopefully as time goes on, we won't have to have as many of these because it will be all looked after. So, thank you.
So who gets to decide what's meriting funding? Well, your council does. At what point do you get to input on that? I hope we have public access to those decision-making. However, I walk up to an intersection in Kentville, a brand new intersection, and there are dots at the intersection, and I go, what are those there for? Why do I need these raised dots on the intersection for me? I don't need those. Those aren't for me. They're not important. I don't want to allocate my tax dollars to put these raised bumps on a sidewalk. Well, those raised bumps are for people who can't see, for people who have mobility issues unlike my own. I don't get to decide how those public funds are spent because we put those into law as to how people access our world. So when people say, I'm gonna make a decision based on biggest bang for our buck, government has to invest in making people equal. Or else colonists like me, my ancestors take over and they tell other people they're not of value. And I don't agree with that. We have to make smart investments, but we have to make the right ones.
It's a good conversation. So we're moving on to the next question. How will you approach tracking the impact and success of efforts to promote diversity and address the challenges faced by equity-deserving groups in Kentville?
We all know, excuse me, we all know this is an issue at some level or not. So I think we would need to start with some basic research methods done. And that includes including going out and reaching everybody. That includes saying, okay, this is what we need to do. We need to get our facts in order for people to present it to council for funding.
To piggyback what Donna said, we can't just assume what the groups are going to be wanting. I mean, we can do the research, but we also have to be able to ask the groups whether we're doing our job. I mean, we can't assume that just because, again, we're sitting at the table, that we're doing it right. And sometimes we're going to have to be called to the question. And we should be able to take that bumps. I mean, I don't mean, and I apologize if I'm going to offend anybody with this statement, but we are a certain group up here. We have to realize that we come from a part of privilege. I mean, most of us at this are Anglo-Saxon. Most of us here are able-bodied, and we have to remember that we're not just a monolith, and we have to go out and be questioned. And that part of that is that tracking. We're not going to know if we're right if we think we're right.
Thank you. I guess when I think about measuring effectiveness, I take a piece from my business background and how we always used to measure any success. The first thing is you have to tell people what the goal is. Don't keep it to yourself, because one person is not going to make it work. We need to collaborate as a team. When I say team, I mean, yes, the team as council, but also the team as the residents. Once we state what the goal is, then we can talk about deliverables. What's the time frame on it? Halfway through the time, let's give a report back. Do you think it's working? That's what I think about measuring effectiveness. And B, if we're still gonna go back and we're gonna look at events that we're having, one of the easiest ways to see if it's being effective, do people show up? Do they come and participate? Do they engage online? Do they fill out the surveys? All those things, that's how you measure effectiveness.
I read a story about a Chinese emperor who wanted to know the state of the empire, and of course, pre-car and all those things. And so he sent emissaries out into various quarters of the empire and to bring back songs. And he based the health of particular regions on the words and the tone of the music. And I think we run a real serious risk. In spite of this face, my DNA report would tell you that I'm 73% Southwest England, but also Algonquin, and also Italian Jewish. And also a person with hidden disabilities. So, and we can talk about that. I'm willing to share all of that, but I think we have to be really careful as we move forward that we do so with an attitude of hope. You can't move forward until you look honestly at the past. I get that. But I think we need to give ourselves collectively a bit of a pat on the back that we have conversations that never would have happened before. We are making progress. We are giving room for voice in our community that never happened before. So we've got to have hope and positivity as we move forward. And I think we can be self-abasing forever, and we're not going to get anywhere if we do that. Thank you.
Measure and verify. That is something that is the only way to be able to tell whether or not you're being effective or not. So whatever programs that we put out, it can be something as simple as what Paul just said, surveys. Ask people what it is that they want. What do we do well? What can we do better? And then learn from it and build on it and build on it. And that's the secret to success.
Thank you. And a few of us around the horseshoe here have already said this, but tracking the impact. I think when we look at the Multicultural Festival, when we look at the Pride Parade, when we look at the community garden that's happening in Oakdean, these are all initiatives that are taking place now that are attracting more people, hence becoming more inclusive and hence becoming more diverse. To Paula's point around, who's showing up. When I think about the Multicultural Festival, and I keep honing in on that one, but it's a real success for Kentville and the surrounding communities. We think about when it started a number of years ago, right here in the Kentville Volunteer Fire Hall, and there were very few exhibitors and very few people attending. And we look at it now, and there were literally hundreds that came out. So I'm proud of that with Kentville. I truly am. So thank you.
So I think we need to look at this, and we kind of have an uphill battle here. It's going to be a new council. We're going to have to work together. But I think what I'm hearing from a lot of people is there's a lot of people in Kentville that are really looking for communication. That's going to be key to this. I think that we are going to have to build some major trust, because there's a lot of people in this town don't have any trust in anything. And the only way to do that is to be transparent and communicate everything, and to make sure that everybody is involved. And we have a ton of work to do. And we're gonna have to connect with everybody, and it's as simple as that. It's not a complicated thing, and that's the only way that we're gonna be able to grow and learn from here. And you know what, there's gonna have to be some grace, because we're new, we're gonna make mistakes, but I can tell you one thing, I'm gonna own my mistakes, I'm gonna learn from them, I'm gonna do the research, and I'm hoping that you will be wanting to be engaged and wanting to be involved. And I think it's great, all these people here are involved, and they're really great people that want so much for Kentville.
Absolutely, 100%. Set up the goals, the measurement, the evaluation, but also be really, really mindful that those who are marginalized will not be participating in traditional ways. So think about how to get outside of the box and reach those folks that traditional methods will not.
Evaluation is always important to see, taking a look back to see how far you've come. And I will feel the difference in the community as a citizen. When I will know we're making progress, when I never hear the word North Kentville. I know that we'll be making progress when I see cement sidewalks on all areas leading into town, and not some of them having to have pavement down. So we can visibly see difference, and yes, change is happening, but it's slow. But we're going back to the 1800s of the way things were in this town then, that are still perpetuating and bubbling below. And so I like this committee. It connects with community, and I'm sure that they have some evaluation methods set up within the committee, and those results will come to council, and council will see them. But as a citizen and as a councillor, I will see and feel those.
Thank you. How do you measure inclusion? Other than asking somebody if they feel like they belong, how do you measure it? I don't think this is a metric that we can sit around and measure. I think it has value, but a mix of people and cultures and traditions and income levels are what make Kentville prosperous. I learned something early in business that there's a concept that's very basic. It's 20-80, or the 80-20 rule. As a teacher, I found that 20% of the kids used up 80% of my time, and they needed it. They deserved it. Because I can tell you, the other 80% can get along just fine without me. Well, maybe not. That's how I legitimize my job. But the 80-20 rule is true, and it's hard to measure. I find that we have a responsibility to help those that need it, and if we measure it, the best thing to do is to ask. Now, if you want another survey, please don't put it on the Town of Kentville website and just bury it and say, respond whenever you want. You have to get somebody out in your face, door knocking, like these people are doing, and hearing that input. There's a valuable resource of champions sitting right here who are door knocking, who could easily ask a couple extra questions if people have the time. So look at this asset. Can we leverage this asset? We got some great people here doing some great work.
So just a quick reminder to everyone, if you have any questions that you would like to have asked of our esteemed panel here, you can write your questions down at the question and answer table at the back, and we'll read them just before the end of the meeting today. So our next question is, what are your thoughts on providing diversity and anti-racism training for municipal staff and council members? Do you see it as a priority? If so, how would you approach it?
Training for municipal staff on diversity is key. That is where it starts. Who teaches those diversity classes? We need to look at who are the experts that are local, first of all. A lot of times, we forget that, when you think about the percentage of people who live in the valley, the first thing I always learned is, did you know it's a senior population? I said, yes, I am one of them. And I do know that, but all the experience that we have sitting in these rooms, that can probably be part of that teaching. That's the first thing we need to do. When we get municipal staff and council trained on diversity and how to look at things, then we need, as I'm going to speak as council, we need to start educating ourselves. So example, I went on the website to do a webinar from Acadia, and it was about to learn about two-eyed seeing. I'd never heard that conversation before. And I think two eyes. So one is about Western and how we look at data and analytics, but the other eye comes from knowledge of Indigenous and how they see and treat the earth and what we can learn from them. And we're supposed to be able to work those two together. If you ever get a chance to do that learning, that will teach you a lot about diversity and inclusion.
So I don't think we're ever too old to learn. We need to be open to learning and take ourselves out of it. We need to be open to feedback. And that means actually listening to what people have to say. I think training for staff is great, but I think ultimately, you know, what we're even doing here, I'm sure there's people that are learning things that are new today even. So I think that it's important for the staff and for the council, and I think it's really important for the public so that we can learn and grow and expand and become better people. There's just always so much more to learn.
Thank you. So I alluded to this in one of the previous questions that we did have some training. It was staff and council, and it was done by the Human Rights Commission. The majority of the folks who were doing the training were of an Indigenous nature, and those were hard 2 days. Colonists, there's a word. There's a word that I learned over and over and over and over again those 2 days. And they were really difficult learnings, but I can tell you one thing. I have a very different lens now when I think about different communities, who they are, where they've come from, what they can offer me as a white woman who did not ever experience any, I've lost the word, but you know what I'm trying to say. Pardon? Absolutely. Racism, prejudice, yes, I have not. So I learned a lot in those 2 days, and it has served me well moving forward, so thank you.
Thank you. The question, I think, was how do we feel about it? It's absolutely mandatory. It's mandatory that everybody who sits on council should go through diversity training and inclusion training and so on. It would be very hard to accept recommendations from a committee to give out funding where it needs to go if you held on to outdated beliefs. And so I think it's absolutely mandatory for everybody, staff and council and mayors. Thank you.
Thanks. So the question around diversity and anti-racism training I think is important, but I think it's more than just a checkbox. It's not just one of those trainings you go to, you check the box, you go, okay, I did my thing, I gotta come back in 3 years and make sure that I do it again so that I can check the box and continue moving forward. One of the pieces of feedback I've heard when I'm meeting with community members and knocking on doors is there needs to be a level of accountability. So we need to be accountable as a council, as a mayor, as a community, to make sure that not only are we going through these trainings, but that we're actually using them, that we're making sure that they happen in our decision making, and that when we don't, we're able to be open and transparent.
I want to just echo what Brent said, but at the same time, I think that mandatory training on safety is important, on first aid, mine expired, but also on inclusivity is fundamental. But you got to have a check-in, you got to have a return, because if the guy working down the street followed the safety course, but doesn't have the hard hat on while he's standing there working for the town of Kentville, there's a problem. If the person that you're interacting with doesn't offer an alternative for you to access information at the town of Kentville, then there's a problem, and there has to be a way for that information to get back to the decision makers who are going to change that. I think we need to check in on those regularly because your reality changes. I have the privilege of being a caretaker of my, primary caregiver to my in-laws right now, and that privilege has opened up my eyes to a whole new world of, your life goes through transitions, and each time, based on your reality, your perception of inclusion may change. I know when I've looked at seniors in our community, they ask, well, we should have green space outside for seniors. How many of you seniors here want to use the indoor walking track in the wintertime versus green space outside in the ice? But I got my flag, I'll be quiet.
Thank you. I'm going to touch on what Deputy Mayor Savage just said. I think the training is important, and us that are here again, we've gone through it. But I like what she said because she's never experienced it before, so she didn't really understand what it's like. And I've felt it many times as a child. So until you're in, if you're someone who's different or whatever your case may be, you don't really understand what it is. You have no idea what discrimination is, and it's not just your color of your skin or your religion or your whatever your choices are in life. It's a whole slew of things, and I think that the training is very important, and it, as Councillor Maxwell said, it should be mandatory on so many levels. Thank you.
I'm going to piggyback on what Brian has said and say that society is forever changing, and I believe that having those kinds of trainings, such as racism and diversity, would be beneficial for everyone that works in town hall, not just council, because as Rob has also said, that it is forever, like we won't be able to judge if, say, something changes in society moving forward, that we don't have that training.
I'm with everyone on this, except that sometimes movements, attitudes can get a life of their own, a kind of inertia. And so I was in a meeting where town staff approached a group who are not all local Indigenous, but included an elder locally, and to announce that a road's name would be changed. And speaking kind of more or less for the group, the elder said, don't change it. Put a statue, put a plaque, do something that's educational instead. Now, I don't know if that was the right decision or not, and that group, of course, didn't speak for every Indigenous Nova Scotian. But the response was, the decision's been made, the name will be changed. No discussion. Thank you.
Yeah, now we're quiet, okay. So this has been wonderfully educational for myself, just kind of running around and listening to everyone's response. So I hope that you've all enjoyed this dialogue as much as I have. We are moving to the event midpoint, where we are going to be doing our public question and answer period. And I'm going to go back to the table and get the names and the questions, and I'll come to you with your questions and give you the microphone. And if anybody wants to get up and just kind of stretch their legs, do a little bit of a walk, get a drink of water or something, use the facilities, please help yourself.
I'm going with it.
Twice one day, how are you? Okay, I saw your. Call you anyway. Yeah. Oh, thank God.
highway back on Wolf Road. And they tore down the trenches and all that, you know. But anyway, I said, I just seen that the other night, the other day.
Hi, everyone. Hello. In the interest of trying to keep things on track, I'm going to ask you to return to your seats. As is wont to happen when people get together, life happens and schedules are affected. So we do have 3 of our panelists who will have to leave exactly at 4 o'clock for prior commitments. But the questions that have been shared with us, I'll make sure that I communicate with Roxy and I get them to all of the panelists, and they'll be able to respond to them. So I'm gonna have these questions, I'm gonna just call out your name, I'll come to you, you can read your question, and then I'll come to the team at the front here. So Scott?
Good afternoon, everybody. It's glad to see so many people out here with candidates and people from the town. My question for all of you are, what are you all going to do about our youth and the lack of facilities for our youth? Also, do you feel that there's an issue of youth homelessness in the town and what can be done? And how close are we to having a new recreational facility, not just for the youth, but for everybody, because it is damn well needed for this town.
I love Scott's question. I'm a retired physical education teacher, and like I said, one of the reasons that I wanted to run again was because we are close, Scott. We are close to a Kings County recreation facility. It's going to be probably very close to town. It's going to be municipal cooperation. We're going to have Kings County's going to be involved. Kentville is hopefully going to be involved. Wolfville will hopefully jump on board. So it will be all of the areas together, working together. And it's in 2 phases. They've got a plan. They know what it will look like. And the phase 1 includes the indoor pool, which I think is incredibly important. It should also have a recreational pool with it, which will be for the youth and the little ones, and you know, with the lazy rivers and things like that. And then there will be a lane pool, hopefully for competitive swimming and also for adult swimming and things like that. And there'll be a whole gamut of programs. So we're very close, and I really, really want to be Kentville's voice on that committee. The other part of the question was youth homelessness. Well, I think we'd have to be, you know, not very sighted to know that we do have some of that in town. And I think we have to look towards our agencies and support them. The Portal is our youth agency, and they are building, I believe, over in the old Burns house, some space there for the youth this winter. And so you know that if you don't know where that house is, right at the bottom of School Street, okay? And so they're the organization to go to.
Thanks, that's quite the 3-part question. So youth having places to go. I'm originally from Montreal. There's a whole different infrastructure. I'm certainly aware that there isn't a lot of place for youth to go here. There's certainly some outdoor spaces for them to go to. We live on West Main Street, the skate park's great. There's lots of people with different interests, so there's certainly an ability to grow some of those. To Kathy's point, there certainly is youth on home. There's lots of folks here in the valley that come for a variety of services, and sometimes there's not all those resources to meet those. So there's certainly a role that this next council will have to do, and I think having a vision to move forward, understanding what that looks like is going to be very key. And a rec center seems really important. I know there's lots of people that have been working at it. I know Kathy's been doing a lot of work for a number of years. I know they've had a feasibility study and a lot of other things. And I think it's also important to note that there's lots of other things that need to happen as well, but I do believe that's down the pipeline.
Thank you. And thank you to Councillor Maxwell for championing that cause. I did, however, I've spoken with two municipal Kings County councillors who have told me that has been tabled for now. So I think it is, hopefully, an issue can be brought to the surface in the next short while. But as someone who grew up in this town, I've always heard that it was coming. And so we have an opportunity through collaboration to hopefully make that happen, right? And in terms of youth homelessness, I'm not going to go big into that. That's kind of my area, but I will say that as a complement to the other services in town, that a group of local volunteers are operating they did last year from St. James. We have a winter shelter program that will complement other services and also refer people either into recovery options or back to their respective hometown or to agencies like the portal. So I think there are volunteer initiatives and also other nonprofits that are targeting these things. We do, however, have an issue that Kentville has become a regional destination center, and so that's something I'm working hard to try to abate that happening.
So this topic is kind of driving me a little crazy, actually. So I'm glad that you brought this question up. We've done study after study after study, and we've been promised over and over and over and over and over and over that we're getting a rec center. Now they're working on it, and we're hearing tidbits here and there. And I'm sorry, but you seem to know a lot of stuff about the rec center, but nobody else seems to know, and that is really concerning to me. I think that if some of the residents knew what was going on and it wasn't this top secret, that maybe people could be a little bit more on board to know what was happening. So I think having a strategic plan that's communicated so that people know what's happening and know where we're going, know what our vision is so important, because people just want to know, they just want a space. The youth are forgotten. I've tried to actually get them involved in some of my journey with the canvassing, and you know, they want to be involved and they just don't feel like there's a place for them. Homelessness here in the valley, I hear it a lot with the police commission, and I think the police commission and the Kentville police it's a gem. We need to keep it. We need to keep our navigator. We should have another navigator. That program is doing a lot of incredible work with the people that are marginalized, and it gives them a voice. So I think we have a lot of work to do, but the number one thing, we need to be communicating so that people know what's going on, because everybody should know what is happening with the rec center.
So in the interest of the few councillors who do have to leave at 4, I'm going to take this to Andrew and then Andrew.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'm leaving. My 84-year-old mother had a little fall last night, and she's got some stitches, so I'm going to go see her in a little bit. I just want to speak to the rec center. That's been probably 3 years now. Council has been actively working with the municipality of Kings County as well as Wolfville, and it's a very slow process. I know people get elected and think you're going to come in and do everything in a minute, and it just doesn't happen like that. And I learned that very quickly when I was elected. So things do take time, and we're at the mercy of those 2 other municipalities to try to sort through that. But Councillor Maxwell is correct. It's on the horizon now. I'm not going to say 100%. None of us can say that, but it is looking promising, and we hope something will come from that soon. As for the youth, it is a problem, because I think in this town, I'm going to say in the last 4, 6, 8 years now, a lot of the community spirit's been killed. And I'm not going to blame anybody, but I think we need to rebuild that. We need to work with our community. And we do have great organizations here dealing with homeless, with all homeless, not just with the teenagers. And I guess maybe we should be having more dialogue with them? Are they doing enough? Are we doing enough to support them? Thank you. I'm gonna leave now, but I wanna thank everybody for coming, and it was nice being in this semicircle with everybody.
I'm going to concentrate on the youth part of your question, because I don't know a lot about the rec center. My background in my graduate work was with youth and children. So I see that many issues don't even discuss youth and children, and how certain of our laws they don't take that into consideration. Even some of our bylaws dealing with crime don't deal with the specifics of what youth are dealing with. And to bring it back to the idea of the youth homelessness, we have to have a huge approach, a holistic approach in looking at that issue, because not only is it youth as the teenagers, but we're dealing with families who are out on the street, and young people who are literally living behind some of our businesses here in town. And we have to look at those issues in a holistic approach, not just how to get people off the street, but like John was saying, how the province tends to make this a hub for those kind of issues, without looking at the infrastructure that is needed to help that.
So I'll address the rec center first. Councillor Maxwell outlined it very well. It does take a while. We have been in discussions. Many of those discussions, even though we have feasibility studies and so on and so forth, some of the discussions when we're talking about funding and how that's going to work, operating capital, who's going to do the bricks and mortar, who's going to sustain it on a per annum basis, is really, those discussions are typically held in camera. They can't be held outside of camera, so a lot of those sorts of things, the public just doesn't know until we actually come to a conclusion and can outline it for folks. As for Kings County tabling it, they've actually tabled the deed transfer tax for now, which would be one of the major sources of funding that they could use for not just the capital piece of it, but also the sustainability of it, the operational budget on an annual basis. So there's lots of ins and outs to all of this, but we're very confident that we're that much closer. I can't see too much about the homelessness, youth homelessness, but we've got a lot of agencies here, Portal, Oasis, we've got the Palette community, but that's not for youth. Good work is being done by a lot of organizations in town, so it can get better. Thank you. Sorry for the wait.
I'm a teacher who works with struggling students, and I have experienced students who are underhoused. I don't know anything about it, I'm going to admit. There are some good champions here who know more about this issue than I do, and I will cede my time to anyone who wants to speak on the issue, because I don't know enough about it, but I can be educated about it. As far as Kentville Rec Center goes, I would strongly support it. I think Kentville lost a high school, and a lot of the facilities that could have come with that, and I would strongly advocate for a rec center to be in Kentville proper. How it is funded, I think if you look at what Berwick did, there are champions who will make sure that that happens, and we need to get champions involved and get it moving. I think they've shown us the way. We just need to stop studying it and do it. And when you study things, you also need to get commitments. I know my kids have flown the coop, so 5 years ago, sure, I would have been, great, I'm involved with high school soccer. Great, let's do it. But now that they're gone, my life has changed, and I need a whole other different accessibility walking track for seniors. So I think we need to find our champions. There are some of them in this room and need to run with it. Stop studying it.
I'm one of the people that has to leave at 4 o'clock
dog. I've got a whole family coming for supper, so I want to thank everybody for being here, and it's been a very interesting conversation. But just to add something to this particular question, the town and the counties, or the towns and the county, whoever gets involved in this recreation center, probably aren't going to be able to fund this building by themselves. We're going to have to look at upper levels of government kicking in a pile of money for us. The provincial government needs to be tapped, and the federal government also needs to be tapped. We need those significant funds to ensure that we get this building built within a reasonable period of time. These facilities are very, very expensive. They're not inexpensive to build, but they're very expensive to operate. So we need to have all those ducks in a row before we actually start putting a shovel in the ground. But I'm hopeful that those governments will come forward, and we'll see something somewhere, hopefully in the Kentville area, very soon. Well, not soon. It takes probably 3 or 4 years to build one of these things, but hopefully we'll see it within the next 3 or 4 or 5 years, that we'll have some kind of facility for us to enjoy. So I want to just thank you for allowing me to come and speak, and I'll hand the mic back.
The one thing that I want to zero in right now, and I want to bring it back to inclusivity, is the youth. I guess I made it my mission to start learning about youth here in the Annapolis Valley, and I guess I can look at Scott first, because I think I approached you years ago when I first lived here that I knew nothing about youth here. I didn't know what opportunities they needed and how I could help. So part of the inclusive piece is I included myself into go into the high schools and talk to the kids about where are you, what do you like, what can we give you? And the conversation in the beginning was really slow because they probably weren't used to being asked. But as we've moved forward, there's a lot of change that I see. And the one thing that they did like about it was, one, someone listened and asked, but two, they were being included in the conversation about where do we go now. I would like to hope that by doing some of that work, that's kind of getting at the root cause of maybe something like that shows them that there's community care and collaboration, and maybe they won't end up homeless. That's not always the case, and I can't speak for that, but there is a way that we can help, and you can be a mentor to many. As far as the facility, I think it's all been said. You know, we need one, and we want one, so yeah.
Maybe not everything's been said about the facility. I'm very much in favor of a recreational facility in Kentville. Rob pointed out there's communities that are smaller than ours or comparable in size that have been successful in having buildings built and run. The one thing that I worry about is that it's been studied for so long, we don't want to break ground on something that's going to be obsolete before it even opens. So I think there really needs to be eyes cast on what the plans are and how we're going to bring those to fruition. As far as the youth goes, I worked for a period of time at the youth facility in Waterville, and also at youth facilities in Liverpool and Antigonish with kids in crisis, in trouble with the law. And I can tell you unequivocally, 98% of those kids will accept a helping hand when it's offered to them. So I think as a town, we need to really look at how we can offer those helping hands. Thank you.
I'm just going to address the capital issue here of the rec center. And one thing from my experience, when I worked for the capital campaign for the hospice, that needs to, and probably is considered, right, is the fact that every year there was a change that ended up affecting our budget. Maybe it was the construction costs, or maybe we estimated that, you know, this needs to be attached to that. Those things change on a yearly basis. So in order to go forward, we have to be able to say, okay, this is where we're going for this funding. This is how we're going to do it, and we may have to push further, we may have to push faster, but we have to keep those in mind. Because those, like, you can hire any construction crew, and they're gonna say, sorry, supplies are now this, right? And that's where we get down to the brick and mortar, as Catherine had said, right? That is something that is gotta be in people's minds when they sit down and say, yes, this is what we're doing, this is where we're going, this is how we're going to do it. Just know that's going forward. Thank you.
Just a quick aside with that, is that you build a new records facility, you need to have some new accommodations there, right? Some hotels, motels, something like that, because over the weekend, we hosted the Under 15 Atlantic Pro Championships. My son ran it, and he had to find accommodations for 3 teams. There was not enough places for 3 teams to stay, so it's cost a lot of money running these organizations, so we need that.
Yeah, yes, I'm just going to speak with our public. Great to hear.
I can hardly wait, I hope I get elected, because I can hardly wait to look at the books. Because as much as I would love to see a brand new facility here, one of the problems that we have with government is they always overspend. And the solution and the way the funding, it seems to me, trickles down from federal, provincial, and down to us, is results in more money printing and more inflation. And I hope we can do this, but I can hardly wait to take a look at this, because there's a lot of issues in this town that have to be taken care of. So good luck.
So my piece is not so much a question, but I'm looking for a commitment from all of you if you end up on council. The sidewalk issues are, particularly with transitions, many of them are uneven. And this road along here is a perfect example of that. And if you are not careful, and this is not just about people in wheelchairs, people with disabilities, I'm talking about people with children, there is a safety risk. So in the meantime, because ripping up sidewalks and replacing them takes a lot, would you commit to having paint? So there's paint contrasting where those spots, so that people can be aware that there is an issue coming up that they should pay attention to. Because let me tell you, the town does not want to have anyone have an accident or fall because the sidewalk infrastructure is not safe.
Kate and I know each other, and I'll start by saying that accessibility benefits everyone. So when we're looking at sidewalks and the unevenness and the cracks, and whether they have a steep curve cut or not, the bumps for visual impaired people, it doesn't disadvantage anyone. And I'm committed to that, and some of you in the audience know me, that sidewalks are important, and they have to be accessible for everyone, not just people who are in wheelchairs, but people who have strollers or young children or stuff. And a prime example is the sidewalk up here, but also if you look at the sidewalk going across the bridge. If I'm on one end and moving, even an able-bodied person cannot pass me safely. And that is something that we should be taking seriously as a town.
I will commit to that, and as well, I think there needs to be a commitment to talk with businesses to see where us as municipality and within our municipal legal framework, what we can do to help the businesses. It's really expensive for a number of businesses in this town to work on their accessibility. And I think as municipal actors, for lack of a better term, we can either see what's within our framework as municipal actors, but also see what we can do in terms of talking to the province and the feds to help. Because it's all well and good if we have to do a lot of accessibility measures, but we have to make sure that A, it's doable in our framework, and if it's not doable in our framework, who can help us and help businesses make that commitment?
Yes, we've been here a long time. I think that's an easy one. We can find some paint. We can find a way to do that and perhaps come up with a plan to make sure that it's more than just doing the bare minimum.
I'd like to advocate for voting for Holly. I think it's important that we have a lens of people who understand the problem and that you support them. I didn't know that about the bridge. How dumb is it to build a new bridge where two people can't pass each other with accessibility options? So we need people like Holly, and we need to give them value, and we need to support them through the next term. Thank you.
Yes, we'll commit to that. I've already talked to our engineer and asked to have the bump out on Main Street painted with the yellow so people can see it when they're driving and when they're walking. So yes, that can be done. And as for the bridge, we had no say in that bridge. We inherited that bridge from previous council, but it's owned by the province of Nova Scotia, and we are not allowed to do anything on that bridge. We're not even allowed to put any lines or anything on it. And so that's where you talk to your MLA, because we can't do anything about it, and I don't like walking across it, because even two able-bodied people can't pass each other on the bridge. Thank you.
Councillor Maxwell said exactly what I was going to say, so, but I also have a stop at 4. I have another engagement, and so I do apologize that I have to leave, but I've very much enjoyed being here this afternoon and having you all come out. It's a very, very important meeting, and I'm really happy to see how many came out on a beautiful Sunday afternoon, so thank you very much.
So my mistake was bridge, but I'm just going to point out that that is something that is overlooked in regards to accessibility, which is why it's important to have that lens of like everything.
The original question was, would we commit to it? And yes, I'd absolutely commit to that, but let's get the color right. I've heard pink and I've heard yellow.
So to respect time, I'm going to ask the questions and perhaps offer the responses to one or two of you, just so we can move through them and we can have everybody's voice heard before we close for the afternoon. So the next question comes from Christina.
You know, I was going to ask a question, and I hope you'll forgive me. I just wanted to talk about my own experience. I'm half Korean, and I had 3 blonde-haired, blue-eyed children. So I think it gives me a little perspective of having been asked on a job interview if I was Mexican or not, and being able to get the job because I answered no, truthfully, because I'm not Mexican. And then him asking me when he saw my mother, "Are you Mexican?" And I said, "No." I got to keep the job. And then also as a woman, getting paid less than men. And so for me, having had that experience growing up, when I had my 3 blonde-haired, blue-eyed children, it was very important for them to experience the minority experience. So I enrolled them into Korean classes, not necessarily for them to learn my mother tongue, but so that they could feel what it's like to be a minority. I think that's really important, that if you don't have that perspective, you might have this idea that we should all be in an area where everything's fair. Life should be fair. And so I think that what was missing in this discussion was maybe the basic explanation of what equity is and why it's important. And this is the way I explain it to my twin 7-year-olds. I say, let's say we're at a playground and a bunch of kids, they have different ailments. You know, one got a scraped knee, one got a bruised head, and one got their tooth knocked out off the slide. Let's say that's what happened. And I've got a first aid kit. But we're only going to be fair. So you get this Band-Aid. But I got a scrape and that works. Okay, that stops the play. You got a bruise on your head. You get a Band-Aid too. I got a tooth knocked out. You too get a Band-Aid because it's fair. It's equal. Equity would say I'd open up that first aid kit and I would give each child what they need. Not necessarily what's fair, not what's equal, but what's equitable. You get an ice pack, kid. You get a Band-Aid, and you get a trip to the dentist. And that's what I think we should be talking about when it comes to equity and how we help our community.
I want to commend you for that. Visually, yes, I'm white. But my mother was born in India, right? My father was born in the UK. My sister doesn't look a thing like me, right? So I do get that. And I do understand the fact that people look at me and they go, you're a middle-aged white woman. Well, sort of. That's all I can say, right? Because people do judge, and I've experienced that. I really commend you on how you addressed the Band-Aid issue. It isn't a first aid kit for everything. That is absolutely true. We have to be able to, and I guess this is where I go back to what I say, to do the research, right? We have to realize that scraped knee on the surface is just a scraped knee. But what happened if it was a chipped bone? That tooth is just a dentist appointment, sure, absolutely. But does that mean that that person's not getting migraines? So I agree, yeah, we need to address all of this, but we also have to take a look and say, okay, what is this issue? How are we addressing this? So I commend you, thank you.
So our next question is a 2 question, and I believe it is Rachel.
Hi, I'm Rachel Creaser. I teach down at the school at KCA, and I just live up the hill on Prospect. I heard lots of inspiring things today. I heard lots of concerning things today. One thing before I ask my question is, I think it's important for everyone that's running for council to understand that, like, we have a long history of newcomers in Kentville. We've always had lots of different people in Kentville, but we also have a long history of proud African Nova Scotians, a long history of proud Indigenous people, a long history of proud queer people. We've been here, we will be here, we will continue to be here. So when we think about diversity, inclusion, and equity, it's not something that goes away. It's something that needs to continue on because people will always be different, and there is no mold, there is no default of what the community looks like or is like. And that's why getting different people's voices, first person's voices is important. I'm part of the diversity belonging task team that has brought us here all here tonight. But we are just that, a task team. We can't force council to do anything. We are trying to create policy that hopefully council will adopt. But my two questions are, do you agree with making our diversity and belonging task team an official standing committee? And do you agree with making diversity, inclusion, and equity training mandatory for all council and staff and town workers? Because we can't mandate a councillor to do that training.
Thank you for the question, and I think we have answered some parts of that question already. Absolutely, I think it should be part of the standing committee. Absolutely, I think that Mr. Peterson and this group have done an amazing job as a task team, and I think that they deserve to have that. Also, the second part of the question was?
The mandatory training.
Yes, absolutely. I said it was supposed to be mandatory, it should be mandatory. And I wanted to point out that Mr. Peterson has been tasked, because I'm on the accessibility and inclusion committee, and I've asked him to look at our flag policy so that we can start flying the different groups' flags from town hall, because I don't believe that there is ever going to be inclusion until the center of government starts flying those flags. It doesn't matter if it's businesses doing it, it needs to be the center of government, and he is working on that now.
I agree with you in terms of the ideas of that things need to always move forward, and it's always going to happen. I mean, to share a personal thing about myself, I am a member of the queer community, and you're constantly having to deal with certain things that are invisible homophobia, and constantly having to go to educate people on the issue. And sometimes that's disheartening. But also, I mean, I don't mean to criticize what you just said, Kathy, because I think it's great having the flags there, but it has to be more than just that. That's a surface thing. That's a visible thing, but you need the actions behind it. And regardless of what the issue is, yes, I like seeing a pride flag in a business, but if I walk in and they treat me differently because I'm in with a man than if I'm in with a woman, that flag doesn't mean anything on their business.
Yeah, I think those are both easy yeses. I think they're great questions to have. I think both of those make sense. The fact that we're creating space for this means that at least we all seem to be committed to working towards that. And training is important, as long as training isn't just part of tokenism, so that people can move forward.
I think your question is a really great question, but it kind of saddens me that you even have to ask that. Because
I think that that's why we need to talk about all of this, because there are systemic barriers. There are systemic barriers to get into that building that aren't about accessibility of your body. And I think that, like, a story was your answer, but I think that that's why I did have to ask it, because I think some people's answers tonight are very concerning to me, that they don't understand that, like, yes, people, you know, are kind, but there are spaces where some of us are not welcome. It may, like, we have to almost over-welcome people. so that they will join us, and participate in the town. It's not a given. Engagement doesn't come just because people want to get engaged. They need to know that they're will be listened to and they will be respected.
I'm really sorry that you don't feel like you belong, and I really hope that we can change that. I think that it's really important, and if we can look at the policies and make sure that that's in there and that the wording is right, I think that it's really important for us to work with and make sure that we actually have committees so that all the groups feel like they belong. I think that that's really important. So having a council that sits down and decides all the different councils that we need to have and that are important. One of those is definitely that. I wasn't aware that I'm saddened that you feel like you don't belong, and we need to change that.
I also am sad that you feel that you don't belong, and I really don't know. I'm kind of at odds with this because I'm learning stuff here. I don't really see that much prejudice in this town. I'm sorry. I think the only flags that should be flown at our town hall are the flag of Canada, the flag of Nova Scotia, and any visiting dignitary, all right? And the reason I say that is not to exclude you, okay? The reason I say that is we have to rally around things that unite us, things that we have in common. We're all Canadians, we're all Nova Scotians, and you should be welcome there, you know. And by the way, if you come to the town hall and I'm a councillor, and you tell me that so-and-so, you know, discriminated against you, I will go hand in hand with you to go talk to that person. Anytime, just come to me. And that goes for race, it goes for, you know, sexual preference, it goes for anything at all. But I think we need to rally around a common cause, the Canadian flag, the flag of Nova Scotia, and any visiting dignitary.
I gotta say I'm pretty humbled because and disheartened.
You know, the violence that it creates in you is that what I want to do is I want to find more people like myself. Maybe you're from Montreal. Maybe, you know, we have things in common. We want to invite people here. What happens to Nova Scotia's immigration is that people land here and they don't find enough people like themselves, so they go to find them where they are. So that's Toronto, that's the GTA, and we need to find more people who are willing to welcome them. We have to over-welcome them, like you say, and we have to break down those walls and say, why are you here?
Okay, so I have 5 more questions to ask, just to let everybody know. Our next question is from Stephen. Stephen, are you here?
I didn't want to say my last name.
Vice?
I feel kind of awkward because my question, you guys knocked it out of the water. Thank you. Mine's kind of redundant. I would like to know, like we talked about, or you've talked about, communication. And communication is very important. I just moved into Kentville a year and a half plus ago. I've lived in Kings County since 1980. So I've hung around here, I've done stuff here, I love this place. But I always struggle with finding out what's what. Until I met, where did he go? Roxy. Roxy's a very busy man. We should give him a stand-up applause for Roxy. He does great. Getting back to my question, there's a lot of individuals like myself, I'm invisibly disabled. I'm dyslexic severely, and I use computers, but there's limits to our tools. So when I met Roxy, I started to learn where I can find the information. But how many people out there that can't get access to that information? And a lot of people say, oh, it's on the computer, oh, it's on the website, oh. Well, there's a lot of us seniors that don't have access to computers, that don't have the understanding of how to get on Google and search for something. So I think we need to get that communication out, maybe go back to the analog aspect of newspapers and or, you know, a town hall crier, you know, hey, hey, hey. So how would you approach that ability, that question of getting the things that you guys do perfectly out to the community? How can you guys get that information out there?
Thank you for that question, Stephen. Some answers may come out as using technology, but for example, if somebody's dyslexic and is using the computer, having vocal things that would read out what that person is, or what that computer screen is saying. Having navigators like Roxy in a whole variety of ways would also help. Because I agree with you, I see clients all the time who, I mean, I have to deal with legal documents, and I can't just send some to some of them, because some of them can't read, some of them don't speak English. So you have to adapt and look for what resources are out there to kind of get those messages out there in not just, I agree with you with people saying, oh, just look at the website. That's not sufficient in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think I'm going to touch what Rob said before. I mean, we have a website that people occasionally go to, but even this event was a little tricky for a lot of people to find out. And so we need to do a better job to make things a little bit more intuitive. And although technology provides a bunch of challenges for lots of folks, it certainly can be a place where people can get together and see some of that information, a calendar of events or something along those lines. I do know the town has a bylaw against billboards, but there is a beautiful non-billboard billboard on the rink that we can use that does talk about a variety of different things. I don't think I saw this event, but I do know there's an event coming on the 5th that was on there. And there are some town bulletin boards that I think we can also use. But one of the things that I think is lacking is, again, about learning to be transformational and not just transactional. We send out tax bills, there's lots of things the town sends out, like water bills and things like that. There's an opportunity to put a little bit more information in that, and all those that have to pay those bills, at least they would get a little bit of information, and not just, this is what we would like from you. So thanks for asking.
I think we just have to have multiple sources of communication, because people, they communicate in different ways. We need to know what that is, and we need to be open to hear the feedback from what people need. And sometimes it's as simple as you just saying, what do you need? What do you need to communicate? And then that's what we'll do. And you know, you've learned how to navigate the world, and it's working for you now. And so, you know, we just need to know what people need, and then where we go from there.
I'm going to go back to the simple stuff too. I think everybody touched on a whole variety of different ways of getting different ways of providing information or feedback, and to meet individual, whether or not their disabilities or needs. But another one that really comes down to the basics is actual two-way conversations with council. Like, you know, you do have the opportunity of being able to come to council and talk what you need is to be able to have that dialogue that's two-way, not just you giving an opinion, and no matter what your opinion is, or asking 5,000 questions and you get absolutely no answers. That is what's got to stop. What'll happen is if you start getting two-way communication going, and getting some of those answers, and getting a commitment to at least get the answers if they don't know at that time, is more people will come to council. More residents will be engaged.
Thanks, Ross. Go back to a couple of things that Brent said, the bills that we send out. I think we have a lot of opportunity. There's only print on one side, so we need to utilize that. But I'll tell you a little bit of information that I learned from one of the mayors. And they, for example, had a project that they needed to do, and there was a lot of infrastructure because they were building a new hospital. So one of the challenges they thought about in the beginning was, how do we keep the residents updated on what's going? Because there's nothing more frustrating to keep driving over the road that's not finished in 2 years, right? So what they did was, they set up, it was Tuesday mornings, 10 minutes on the radio for 2 years. And everybody tuned in to the radio, and all of a sudden, like Sharon said, people started to coming more and more to the meetings, because not only now did they listen on the radio for 10 minutes every Tuesday, and apparently the mayor, even though there was a glitch, it was like, but don't forget, the new hospital is what we need. He always tied it back to something that was good for the residents. And apparently it was a huge success, and they do get quite a number of people who come to the meetings now, so it's a good idea.
Well, just as you've said, we need to over-welcome. I think we need to over-communicate. Let's face it, I don't know about the rest of you in this room, but my email box is inundated with so much information. My texts, there are so many. There's a lot of noise out there. There's a lot of things coming at us, a lot of things being communicated with us. So I think part of the job of council is to cut through some of that noise, for sure. The idea of town halls that have been mentioned before, I think, are a good one. But also going to where people gather, right? This past week, the Legion had Legion Week. Brent dropped in, Paula dropped in, John dropped in. They went to where people gather. Myrna is not here right now, but she said to me in the lobby, why don't you guys come down to the Lions Club? I said, hey, I will go anywhere I'm invited. So I think, we have to do that as well. You have to go to where people gather.
Communication is an ongoing issue, I think, not just with town, but with businesses and things like that. And I think we're constantly looking for new ways to communicate, and you're competing with a lot, with the phones, with podcasts, with music. I mean, it's too much stuff. So I have brought up about radio as a method of communication around the council table, and what I'm basically told is the cost of using radio to get information out is very expensive as compared to using the computer and things like that. So I think it's something that we need to task our communication team with looking at their budgeting, and it all comes down to money, unfortunately. You only get so much money, and you do what you can with it. But as residents, I would recommend that you choose a method and stick to that one method. And our meetings are always, the second Monday in the month is CAC, and all the reports are given, and dates and